I finally decided to watch Modern Spongebob. So I picked a random episode of season 15 and got the episode Unidentified Flailing Octopus. The episode starts off with Perch Perkins telling us about sightings of aliens in Bikini Bottom and asking the general what the chances are that aliens actually exist. And he says he's 99.9999% sure they don't. Now instantly, I don't think making an episode on aliens is an insanely creative idea, but I am curious how they put their spin on it. Also, I want you to know, I'm going into this episode thinking it's going to be hot trash because of all the hate and things I've heard about Modern Spongebob. So Spongebob and Patrick are glued to the screen all excited and are actually going to search for the aliens and put these funny little tinfoil hats on. Sometimes Spongebob and Patrick are so interesting because these guys are some of the biggest wussies in Bikini Bottom. I mean, they couldn't even get through a horror movie. Spongebob is scared of Halloween and people in costumes. Patrick was literally scared of the Glove World mascot, but for some reason, aliens don't freak out these goofy goobers. Anyways, Spongebob and Patrick just start flashing their flashlights all around the neighborhood, calling out for these aliens, and of course, keep shining their lights right in Squidward's window. Some good old Squidward torture. We then get to see some modern Spongebob animations with the overdramatic expressions, but that's nothing that's gonna make me hate this episode yet. Spongebob and Patrick are just being straight idiots, circling this flower patch, thinking it's some alien crop circle. Squidward tries ending their fun by explaining that aliens do not exist and to go to bed, thinking they will stop them, and it does. I'm joking, it's Spongebob and Patrick. So they keep running around Squidward's house for some reason, which makes no sense, and seems like they're just torturing him, but Spongebob and Patrick might know more than we think, and we'll talk about this later in the episode. Squidward ends up toying with them by dropping a fake UFO, which is practically a plate with Christmas lights, and somehow they fall for this, and they're not scared at all, just taking some photos of it all excited. So he then knocks them to the street with the UFO, and comes up to them in an alien mask, and they fall for this too, and still are not scared, even when thinking this is a real alien. But Squidward takes the mask off, and breaks their dreams of finding aliens, convincing them that they're not real. So Spongebob and Patrick roleplay as Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy instead. This scene seems heavily inspired from the episode Don't Look Now, where Squidward acts like he's a scary fisherman to scare Spongebob and Patrick. And if you remember that episode, you remember how he got his karma for this. And this episode is no different. As soon as Spongebob and Patrick go into the pineapple, an actual UFO saucer comes down to Squidward's house. Which, first off, I feel like Spongebob and Patrick knew this was gonna happen because they were checking out just his house. So maybe they had like a hint or something. I don't know. Maybe they were just being stupid, probably. And what walks out of this UFO is something I never would have expected. Some weird looking Squidward house face looking things. Definitely made original with the aliens because I was expecting something like on Squidward's mask. So I'll give him that. Very original. Pretty much though, Squidward's house is supposed to be an artifact from their aquatic ancestors, which makes sense since their heads look just like Squidward's house. And since Squidward is in their artifact, they need to eradicate the parasite before they take his house. Now already this plot twist is much better than Don't Look Now. In that episode, Spongebob and Patrick pretty much just get some balls after thinking the fisherman is attacking Squidward and practically almost kill Squidward. And then Gary becomes the fisherman and scares him in the end. This plot twist is a whole lot better already and much more creative. And also didn't run the gag of Squidward teasing them for pretty much the entire episode, like Don't Look Now. I honestly didn't like how repetitive that got, so I'm glad I took inspiration from what made the episode funny and changed it up for the better. So these aliens teleport into Squidward's room and use some spray that I guess was just made for killing Squidward. It has a logo of him with a no symbol and everything, which is very suspicious. Maybe there's more Squidwards live in houses like this. I don't know. Anyways, they spray Squidward and his eyes pop right out of his head and they become self-aware real eyes and run off. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the gags in this episode seem less dramatic than other modern episode clips I've seen. This episode so far feels a lot like an old Spongebob episode. Maybe a little more of a dramatic, but it's not overdone. Of course, I'll get more of my opinions later, but I'm liking this episode so far. Anyways, Blind Squidward gets lucky and gets a hairdryer out of his drawer and reroutes the kill Squidward spray towards the aliens. He then goes and attacks the aliens, thinking that they're Spongebob and Patrick. But once he realizes they are still inside the pineapple, role-playing as superheroes, he bugs out, realizing that aliens are indeed real, which is kind of confusing. Because didn't Squidward already know this? Because in the episode Out of the Picture, Squiddy literally goes to Mars and meets some Martians, getting first-hand proof aliens exist. Now, either when they beamed him back down to Bikini Bottom, they erased his memory, or Spongebob just doesn't have any continuity. Squidward, though terrified, runs to Spongebob's house, begging them to let him in. But because of him doing this means Squidward's house is empty, so the aliens decide to abduct it. And an even bigger UFO mothership comes out, abducts a tiny UFO, and Squidward's house. And so Squidward obviously grabs onto his house and is now on the mothership, while Spongebob and Patrick just happily ignored him and are having fun playing superheroes. So we see that there are even more of these alien dudes. And Squidward, being the most talented Karen, comes out with the most iconic line, "I want to speak to the manager." But they don't understand Karen language, so he asks again in alien language, "Take me to your leader." These guys, being oblivious to the fact a squid came out of the artifact they are cleaning or painting, just simply tell him where a leader is. But then the aliens from earlier show up and capture Squidward in some goo. And then they say something wild. So they say they're gonna run some tests. And then this guy like winks and says, "And do a probe." I don't know about you, but when I think of the word probe and aliens, I think of that South Park episode where pretty much they put this probe up your butt. And truthfully, it's not like a South Park thing. That's just where I've seen it from. This is a very known thing with aliens. Even the definition on Google refers to it to be graphic in a form of essay. This is a very known thing. And I truthfully wonder if they're making an adult joke or using the actual probe definition, which is a blunt-ended surgical instrument used for exploring a wound or part of the body. I don't know. Anyways, they tie Squidward up after getting way too excited about probing Squiddy, and we get this funny x-ray scene followed by some typical Squidward torture, which consists of stretching his neck and filling his nose up with something, which actually helps him and allows him to push back the aliens, freeing him. This is when the episode feels like something out of Rick and Morty, because he runs around the spaceship, there are a bunch of aliens chasing him, and he comes into this room, and we see this huge Squidward house looking head, and it's connected to all these other aliens through these tubes, and we watch as the head's eyes turn green, and it lays an egg. It makes this disturbing baby alien. And I'm not even gonna lie, Squidward's face here was animated perfectly. It's genuinely hilarious. This scene was disturbing. Not only the baby, but the fact that they have all these what look like unconscious aliens hooked up to this head is so creepy and not at all what I expected from this episode. So Squidward, horrified, tries to escape, but realizes that he's in space. And without a spacesuit, he's gonna die. So he heads right back onto the ship, just to get surrounded. And now it's time for Squidward to get probed. At first, this dude has some crazy looking weapon, like he's about to do something freaky or carve into Squidward, but then this thing turns into a pen, I guess. So I guess me and Squidward had no idea what probe meant, but I still do think SpongeBob knew exactly what they were doing. The alien brings out the pen though, to give Squidward a therapy session to learn about him. And I guess Squidward is just so broken and has so much trauma, not even these aliens could handle him. So they send him and his house right back to Bikini Bottom. And so when Patrick literally see the huge mothership, but still trusting Squidward, they still think aliens are not real. Now I'm not gonna lie, I actually enjoyed this episode. I was making this video as a way to make fun of modern SpongeBob, but I accidentally stumbled upon a pretty decent episode that, by the way, was made last month. This episode honestly kind of gives me hope for future SpongeBob, because to be honest, I gave up on SpongeBob and never expect anything good from it, but this is actually not bad. I actually enjoyed it, thought it was funny, and was intrigued in the story, and to be honest, it was pretty creative and something we'd never seen before. Not to mention, they also gave us some lore on Squidward's house that we never had before. After all these years this show has been out, Squidward's house, according to Google, was just inspired by Easter Island heads and was built by volcanic rock. That was pretty much all the lore. And I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty boring when comparing it to the lore this episode created for this house. After this episode, we now know that Squidward's house is an artifact from some alien species, and a weird being that looks just like his house is in space pooping out little Squidward house head babies, which is cool, but I kind of wish we got more information on these species. There's so many unanswered questions, and I honestly think another episode exploring these aliens or aliens in general would be interesting. We have been teased 3 times by aliens in Bikini Bottom, but never learned where they came from or anything. We just see the aliens, that's about it. This episode though did give more lore on the aliens than the previous 2. The Martians were shown for like a second, and in Planet of the Jellyfish, the alien was barely shown. We just more so watched it possess everything. This was the first ever episode to really focus the episode on aliens. And I think they did a really good job, to be honest. It felt like a kid version of the Alien South Park episode, but I still do wish we got more lore on the aliens, like where they came from, what that room was with all the aliens in the pods. Anyways, I think this episode did a great job at bringing back that old school SpongeBob charm, and I hope they continue with that. The jokes felt funny, the overdramatic expressions never felt too over the top. I mean, honestly, the face Squidward made after seeing the baby Squidward head thing was hilarious and captured that emotion perfectly. It wasn't cringe whatsoever. This story felt like something straight out of early SpongeBob. There wasn't much Squiddy torture, but just enough to make it funny, which is rare for newer SpongeBob. SpongeBob and Patrick weren't overly obnoxious, but played their part perfectly for Squidward to get his card when the aliens came to him. It just felt like they weren't trying too hard to be funny, and just trusted that what they had was good enough. And it was. For a recent episode, this was really good, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. I liked it. But yeah, it's me watching Modern SpongeBob, the episode Modern SpongeBob, the episode Modern SpongeBob with the